Welcome to the Election University podcast, a weekly show where we hear from industry experts who share tips and tricks for winning campaigns. Whether you're running for office now, thinking about it for the future, or just want to know more about campaigns and elections, Election University is for you. With Election University, click, learn, win. And now your host, Jason Bennett and Rene Cohen.
Hello.
Welcome back.
We're back. Did you miss me?
I just saw you. Did I miss seeing you in headphones? Absolutely. Did I miss you in front of our recording equipment? Absolutely. 100%. Listeners, as you may have noticed, we have been off air for our development of season 2. And we've decided that, right around election time, it might be a good time to plan and think about upcoming seasons and upcoming episodes. And because of its crunch time and the work that both Rene and I do, it's probably good for us to end a season in the September-October timeframe and then pick back up around the holidays. And that's what we're doing.
Still have the capacity to do higher quality interviews.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, it'll just be a bunch of
turns out
spitting up on ourselves.
Election season is really difficult when you work elections.
Yeah. So Rene and I got together. We plotted out what we want season 2 to look like, and we're really excited to launch into our new episodes. And other exciting tidbit.
Ooh, what?
Our website is officially launched. So we've redeveloped version 1.0 of the 2.0.
What?
Is that 2.1? 2.1. Oh my
I don't
God.
know. I don't version.
Every single software person out there just condemned me. We have launched a new website. Go to www.electionu.com. We've rolled out some new features. We wanted the website, based on your feedback, to be simpler and a better user experience. And so that thing's launched.
It is slick.
Have you taken a look?
I have. I took it for a test drive, and it is beautiful, easy to use.
Thank you.
I love the layouts.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all the feedback that you provided. As many of you know, working with designers and tech people can be quite an intensive process, and it has been an intensive process reworking the website so that it was better and more usable for our students and our fellows. So version 2.1 is out now, and pretty soon in 2 weeks, we will be launching the updated version with even more features coming out. We just need a little bit more development time, a little bit more testing to roll those out. So get started now. Sign up for the jobs board or for the coming soon feature rollout. Let us know what you think. We would love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, awesome.
And speaking of exciting new things, let's start our new season. I'm really excited to be talking about this. Part of the discussion that Rene and I had was we want to talk about things that impact campaigns, not only just how do you run a campaign. So many of our listeners out there are not running for office themselves right now. Many of them are supporting cast or are interested in politics. So we wanted to take some interesting topics. And the first one, up on deck. Oh, sports analogies.
On deck.
I'm paralyzed. I can't do sports analogies. Up next is public financing of campaigns. And we wanted to talk about an interesting program in 2017 called Seattle Democracy Voucher Program.
Right. So we are going to talk to Rene LeBeau. She is the Democracy Voucher Program Manager at the City of Seattle. Rene has 20 years of election administration experience at the state, county, and local level. Her primary focus has been on compliance, implementation, and innovating the elections process. So she is an expert at how to do these kinds of things. And the Democracy Voucher Program in Seattle, I think, was such a brand new thing for voters last year that lots of people were confused by it. So I'm excited to talk to her and just get the lowdown for, you don't often get to sit down with an election official and hear what the skinny is. So
pick their brain.
Very excited to do this.
Understand what works and what doesn't work with the program and what's coming up for round 2 of this. A lot of round 2s going on around here. So season 2 of the Democracy Voucher Program, since we're on that theme. And I'm excited to learn from her. I think she's going to give us a lot of great info today.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Rene, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
In the pre-interview, we read a little bit of your brief bio and resume, but our listeners love to know the origin story of our guests. So would you mind telling us a little bit how you got into elections, how you got started?
Sure. So I was graduating from college here in Washington State, and I found myself in the Washington Secretary of State's office in an internship working for a program that protects domestic violence victims' addresses from being disclosed accidentally via public records. Through that, I started working with the elections office and ended up getting hired at the Secretary of State's elections office. From there, I ended up in software for nearly 5 years and found myself back in elections at King County, so I was now at the county level. And from there, I ended up here at the City of Seattle's Ethics and Elections Office, and that was in 2016. So oddly enough, I owed all to an internship that I fell into.
That's amazing.
And I love political people always say ended up, because it's just like, that is how we move from job to job in this business, is like, I ended up in this position. It's like, I love that.
It's so true.
It's so great. Well, thank you for that. We are trying to cover topics that I think are broad in range and aren't necessarily about candidate-specific campaign work. And one of the topics that we thought was really interesting is the public financing of campaigns and the efforts behind getting public financing of campaigns done. Obviously, there's a huge onus on candidates to raise money for their elections, and we're doing this interesting, atypical effort here in Seattle, Washington. And as the person who's running that, we were hoping that you could walk us through what it is and what it does and what your thoughts on the effort is. So would you mind telling us generally what public financing of campaigns are and what the Democracy Voucher program in Seattle is specifically?
So generally, public campaign financing is essentially using public dollars for candidates to run for office. In a brief nutshell, there's a couple of main types of programs in other jurisdictions around the country. One is a matching program and one is a granting program. So the matching program, essentially a candidate would go out and collect maybe a $10 contribution from a resident, and then they can take that contribution, once they show a certain number, they can take that back to the office that runs the campaign financing program and get a match, like a 2-to-1 or a 6-to-1, but essentially amplify those dollars. And the idea is that if you are collecting from people with lower incomes, it can empower that contribution, so you are talking to more people and going out to more donors. Another type of campaign financing would be a granting program. So again, once you've collected a minimum number of small dollar donations, again, to show that you can garner enough public support to run a competitive campaign, you get a grant. Up to a certain amount of dollars is basically granted directly to you. So then comes the Democracy Voucher program. And I think one of the significant differences is that rather than amplifying the dollars that the campaign goes out to collect, we're actually giving and turning the entire adult resident population of the city into a potential donor by having 4 $25 vouchers in their hands. Mm-hmm. So the campaigns are empowered in that they can run a competitive campaign using these public dollars, but we're also turning all of these residents into potential campaign donors, so they're being empowered to participate in a process that previously only 1 to 2% of the population participated in.
Yeah.
So the idea is that if you mail every voter their vouchers, then they will then have the opportunity to participate in a way that they hadn't before, because it's hard to reach every voter if you are running for office. Is that kind of it?
That's the idea. So the democracy vouchers are available to any Seattle resident who's over 18 and lives in the city of Seattle. So we know that that's all the voters, and one of the unique things about this program is legal permanent residents are also eligible to receive democracy vouchers. So that group of folks is able to participate in the elections process in the first way ever.
Excellent.
So that's one of the empowering moments. So additionally, candidates can literally go knock on any door, and there will most likely be a voucher holder in that home, in that residence.
Interesting. I didn't know that it was beyond registered voters who got the vouchers. I just know that mine showed up in like January in my mailbox, and I was like, this is so early. What? I hope I don't lose these in time. Were other people having that reaction when democracy vouchers showed up in their mail?
Yes, the mail-out date for 2017 was a bit problematic for a lot of folks, but I think that the drafters of the initiative, their idea was they wanted new candidates, people who are not part of the existing political structure, to have the best chance to get a competitive campaign going. And we just didn't know how long it was going to take for vouchers to get collected. So a couple of things happened. We had post-presidential, post-holiday, beginning of the year, probably the worst time to mail out any new political idea ever.
Because they just survived the dinner table over the holidays, talking about the wall or whatever with the family members. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be thinking about city council races or anything. Or so maybe they do.
First thing I asked when I started working here was, can we change the mail-out date? And the answer was no. You cannot change any words of the initiative for 2 years. So January 3rd was going to be the day. We did a minor media. We did a bit of a media push in December, but we were competing with a lot of other messages, and so we just went with it. And we immediately created a replacement process because knowing that people were going to not know what they had, probably recycle them, put them in a corner somewhere. But then alternatively, heard from a lot of people that put them somewhere safe to save them to use later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Mine went on my refrigerator.
Yeah. And it was interesting because there is a desire to want to send them in early. We'll talk about that in a little bit, the timing and when people max out and all of that. But I wanted to kind of see who was going to break ahead in races that I wasn't necessarily involved in specifically, so that my money wasn't going to go to waste. So it's interesting. I think this allows flexibility for both the eager beavers and the procrastinators, if you will.
Well, and if we can back up for just a second to the other two kinds of programs around the country, the matching program or the granting program. With democracy vouchers, they're only for the city of Seattle for like some municipal races. How are the granting and the matching programs available for candidates up and down the ballot, or what are the limitations on those?
They vary quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
In your opinion, on the idea behind public financing is to create maybe more of a level playing field amongst candidates. So candidates who may not necessarily come from careers that have wealth, or, families that have wealth. This gives more of a level playing field for candidates of all different sorts of backgrounds and expertise. Do you find that had been in practice in the first round of this?
The first round was pretty limited. We had a pretty small number of candidates. I think we had some strong incumbents. So I think next year is going to be a really wonderful test of this program, having seven district council seats on the ballot. So I think we're still in the early stages to know exactly what that looks like. But definitely the intention is to provide a funding mechanism. The Democracy Voucher program is not going to turn a person into a fantastic candidate. It's going to provide a funding resource. Mm-hmm. So at least that one daunting obstacle to looking at running for office can be taken care of, can be taken down. So I think early on, I don't know if there was a perception that democracy vouchers are going to make it easy to run for office. It's definitely not going to make it easy to run for office. It's going to give you money so that you can go through the challenge of running for office.
Right. Yeah.
Well, so we've talked a little bit about what this looks like from the voter side, or the adult in Seattle side, where they receive vouchers in the mail and then they can give them to the candidate of their choice. Can you talk a little bit about how it works from the candidate's end?
So for the candidates, the candidates do have to go through a qualifying process. There's a number of steps that the candidates have to go through. And right away, when somebody's talking about running for office in the city of Seattle and potentially thinking about using democracy vouchers, the first thing we say is you need to come in and talk to us. So our office has training sessions where we really go over like the rules and regulations around running for office, opportunities the Democracy Voucher program offers. So essentially, if somebody does make this decision, they'll sign a pledge, and the pledge states that they do agree to some of the rules around being a Democracy Voucher program candidate, such as you're limited to a $250 individual contribution limit. So in addition to enacting democracy vouchers, the Initiative 122 enacted a number of other campaign finance reforms, and one of them was to reduce the contribution limits. It's $500 for any candidate running in the city of Seattle, but if you're a voucher program candidate, it's limited even more. You agree to that. You also agree to public debates where you're out there with your other candidates running for office and debating in public spaces.
Mm-hmm. How many do they have to agree to?
3 for the primary, and then if you make it through, it's another 3 for the general.
Okay.
And then you sign a pledge, and once you sign the pledge, we put your name and your campaign name and a link to your campaign on our website. So now once the vouchers start to come out, people can go look to see who can sign up. So that can happen now. People can pledge to run for office now. Going into next year, we will start offering candidates the ability to give a 150-word statement. We're going to call them candidate introductions so they don't get confused with some of those other candidate statements out there. And we're going to translate that into 14 additional languages.
Nice.
So that the public, and most of the public, can find out a little bit about you. So you'll have an opportunity to provide an introductory statement. We'll put your name and everything on the website, and then you also need to begin the qualifying process. So 2019, it's up to $150,000 per candidate. But the first thing you have to do is qualify and show us, again, that you're able to go out into the community and get 150 people to give you a minimum of $10 so that we can see that you are, number one, able to go out and talk to folks and just gather enough support for your office, and really committed to running for office because we have a limited amount of funds. So
I remember doing that for a candidate last year, and that worked really well, where I signed a pledge and then handed over $10, and it seemed pretty quickly that candidate was able to be up and running on the voucher program.
It seems doable. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a high threshold.
Yeah.
150 seems reasonable.
And of the 150, it's 150 total, and then 75 this is for next year alone. 75 of those must come from within the district that you're running in.
Ah.
Yeah.
That's one little bit different from last year. It was from anywhere in the city. This year, it's just within your district, half and half anywhere else in the city.
Right.
Is that because the initiative was written that way, or because last time it was at-large seats and this time it is districted seats?
Yeah, the initiative was written to address at-large at 400 qualifying contributions from anyone, and the districts were written this way. So those were both put in the initiative.
Got it.
For the listeners out there who may not know, our Seattle City Council has some positions that are elected citywide, and some are in certain jurisdictions. This upcoming election cycle, it is just the districted seats that are up, and that's why we have the split, is what it sounds like. So, very interesting. Okay, so we've got this system and it's ready to go, and candidates have signed the pledge and they're rearing and ready to go to get their 150 people, 75 in district, 75 in the city of Seattle. And what are you anticipating for this year? What were the lessons that you learned? It sounds like the mail date is an important one that was recalibrated for this upcoming cycle. What else are you noticing that will be different this year?
Yeah, so the mail date, February 12th, is when they'll be put in the mail, so people will get them not long after. We did refine the qualifying process a little bit in terms of just sort of the flow and administration of it. Last year, we had documents submitted, half the qualifying contributions would come in, and then a third more, and this year we've got a much clearer process. We also wrote a 20-plus page candidate toolkit. Really, it's just the ins and outs of the Democracy Voucher program for a candidate. Very, 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 plain language. It's very simple to read, and so that includes some of the lessons that we learned. Also, last year, candidates. One thing we found out last year: 80% of the vouchers came in by mail to our office. So that means the candidates had no idea how many vouchers they had in their name, and for a good week or two after we received them, just because of some processing steps that we had. Mm-hmm. But we've adjusted them. So now the vouchers that come directly back to our office, they'll be assigned to the candidate, the named candidate, immediately, and that information will be available on our website. So a candidate can go onto our website and look at a dashboard that will tell them how many are in this state of received, how many have I already received in dollars, so people can understand how much dollars are coming in, how many vouchers are coming in for a candidate. So we're trying to make more information available in a summarized and easy to access format, and we did not have that last year.
That's great.
Other changes, big one, will be online access to vouchers. And that will launch hopefully the week we mail out Democracy Vouchers, so people can access their vouchers online. Instead of having paper, they can choose to be an online voucher user moving forward. If they lose them, they can just go online and access their vouchers and assign them right there.
Yeah.
So I have a question about multiple people running in the same seat. What happens when one candidate wants to use democracy vouchers, but another candidate wants to raise money the old-fashioned way and has a competitive advantage because they can raise more money or something? Are there limits or rules about running against each other in that situation?
Mm-hmm. So candidates can choose to enter the program or not. It's completely voluntary. So you're going to have a mix of candidates in the program and not in the program. So it's a non-program candidate, which is subject to the $500 individual contribution limit, but can raise unlimited amounts of funds. And there is a provision in the initiative that allows the program candidate, if they feel that there's oppositional spending, and that spending can be from a candidate's running against, from their actual campaign, or it could be oppositional spending, independent spending. So the program candidate can look at this oppositional spending and say, oh, this is beyond my spending limit. This spending is way beyond my $150,000, and then they can write a letter and basically an email, an appeal to our office outlining the numbers and ask for the commission to consider granting them release from the spending limit.
Mm-hmm. That was going to be my question, is independent expenditures and how they have changed as a result of this. Because I think one of the arguments in the public financing world is we have to do something about bad money, right? There's too much influence of money in politics. And so a lot of the efforts, not all of them, but a lot of the efforts that push public financing try to address some sort of trigger that will, come in and help candidates when independent expenditures are being spent in a higher than average sort of way. Do you have control other than this? Have you noticed that there's been any behavior change in terms of the independent expenditures? Has it gone down? Has it gone up? What are you seeing on that end?
At this point, we're just generally seeing a rising in independent spending. The Democracy Voucher program, as you know, it can't do anything to affect that. I think what we hope is just to bring the people back into the process and try to dilute the impact. But at this point, we're just watching to see if this program, if we do see an increase in the already increase in spending.
Yeah, it seems like it's getting bigger and bigger every year.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to track, right? If there's any impact on it or not, because everything costs more every year and there's more money in politics generally. All right, let's talk about cost. How is this getting funded? How are people paying for this, for folks who aren't aware of of the funding source?
This program is, when they passed the initiative, there was a 10-year levy, and it's $3 million a year is collected, and that's dedicated entirely to this program. And that money covers the implementation costs, the administration, as well as the candidate disbursements.
Okay. So, and then does this expire at any point? Do people have to re-vote on the taxing authority for this, or is this codified now and it's good to go?
Right now, it's only for 10 years.
10 years.
10 years. It's a 10-year levy, started in 2016, and at that point, I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen.
Things could look very different across the entire landscape by then. Yeah.
So true. In so many ways, so many ways. Well, that's really interesting. And I'm curious to know if like for me, just thinking about fraud, right? And then especially if you have something online, I've been to a couple of cyber conferences about online voting. West Virginia is doing a test pilot project to do some online voting type, pilot projects. And so when you're making these vouchers available online, what are the protections that you're noticing? Are you having to shore up cybersecurity, and how are you feeling about the fraud potential on something like this?
Yeah, so I'm not a technical person. I just want to put that out there right now. Unfortunately, I've dabbled in it for too many years. So I think interesting advantage to this program that elections does not have, because I've been involved with the concept of online elections, is there's no expectation of secrecy. So that whole idea of keeping who voted public but how they voted secret, that is a very, very serious complication when you're looking at the idea of online elections, which I support, by the way. So online vouchers, our biggest hurdle is how do we authenticate that the person making the voucher decision is really the person?
Right.
And it seems simple because we do it all the time. We do it with banking. We do it with, I don't even remember all the things I've signed up for. But in looking at the fact that these are public dollars, this is the public's money. There's money coming into this program and going out to campaigns, and then they're doing their official campaign reporting on that. So there's just layers and layers of really accountability for those dollars. So we ended up working with a third-party identity vendor. We're still working out the kinks. And essentially, once somebody gets their paper vouchers, they'll receive some kind of invitation code, or they send us an email and we send them an invitation code. They will then be able to get into our system, validate themselves through this third party, and then be granted access directly to their vouchers that they can then just go and sign. And getting over that hurdle, and what's the low fraud potential, but also needs to be low barrier access. This is the one we came up with.
Yeah. No, I think it sounds great. It's the demand when you're talking about public dollars is like, it's got to be transparent and, accessible. And I can only imagine all the concerns that you're juggling while trying to, make this as easy and smooth a process as possible. So our hats off to you. Yeah.
We're just, I feel like it's just like with voting. You're inviting people to come in and give you their opinion and give you their hope, their choice, and you have a responsibility to take care of it. And that's pretty much it. Like, there's nothing beyond that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Well, this program is so innovative and exciting, and it makes me wonder, like, do you get phone calls from other municipalities who want to copy this legislation or figure out like how it's going? Are people interested in this?
Lots of interest.
Yes.
There's a lot of interest, and I know that some of the organizations that really push to get this, out on the ballot in front of the Seattle community, they're nationwide, they're all over, and so there are lots of jurisdictions that are wondering, how is it going? Who is this engaging? Is the needle changing? Are you moving it? And it's just so early to see these incredible results. However, there's still incredible results. There's like 300% increase in the number of individual contributors.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But when you think about how small the number was to begin with, it's going to take us a while to see huge.
Yeah.
But no, it's all over.
That's awesome.
All over the country. Actually, we get calls from other countries that have university students studying it. Yes.
Wow, that's really fascinating.
Wayne is in Philadelphia this week talking about democracy vouchers.
Wow.
Living and breathing it.
Yeah.
Even on the road, taking the road show out. We love it.
Yeah.
So if folks want to learn more about the program, where should we send them? Where should folks look up more information?
Definitely our website. We jam-pack that thing with information for candidates, information for residents, and really that's the one-stop place to go and go talk to people that ran for office. Get their opinion on what it was like to use democracy vouchers, and give us another chance, give us another year to get it even better. But I would just recommend going to the website and just reaching out to the Seattle Ethics and Elections Office and coming in and having a conversation about running for office, because we are independent, we are nonpartisan, so we don't have vested interest in any particular political race or anything.
Yeah. Well, I will say that you're doing an excellent job implementing a very new, groundbreaking program that I don't think any program resembles whatsoever out there in the universe. So kudos to you and your entire team for doing that. The website is www.seattle.gov/democracy-voucher. Rene, thank you so much for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. This was fantastic.
Thank you both.
Another big thank you to Rene LeBeau for joining us from Seattle City Ethics and Elections, the Democracy Voucher Program.
Love it.
What'd you think?
I loved it. I think that the program has been difficult to explain to the public because it's so unlike anything that voters have participated in before. And so it was really nice to have a conversation with the person who knows everything about it, just to make sure that all of the understanding is in place. And I, of course, am all for things that engage more voters, particularly people who aren't inclined to give money to campaigns. One of the criticisms is that it feels like monopoly money, right? You're like, if I give you this piece of paper with $25 on it, then where does that money actually go?
Right.
So I think it's going to take a while for the public to get used to it, but it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, I love it. And as a political person that has to work on campaigns, I think it's really fun because the campaigns then feel a little bit freer. The candidates feel a little bit freer not to spend, 6 hours a day on the phone begging people for money, right? And this frees up their capacity to actually think about the issues, be a little bit more thoughtful in their responses on questionnaires and out with the public, and they get to spend more time, canvassing and doing field work. I think all of that makes the democracy a little bit better.
Totally.
I do think that there's this challenge around the independent expenditures, because that's always going to be a workaround with all of these public financing efforts is that nothing really stops them. And listen, I work on independent expenditures. I, make money doing them, and will probably continue to do so. So I'm not demonizing them, but if the effort is to level the playing field, that is one part of this that makes it difficult to make it a completely level playing field and equal access for all. So.
But it's, you got to start somewhere, and this is a pretty good start, I think. And maybe in, 10 years when there's much more data and the levy runs out, something can be done to write a new thing about IEs in there.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the being able to free up the candidate from their spending and contribution limit, should the maximum total donation, including the independent expenditures, exceed a certain dollar amount, then, that's one trigger that I think is pretty helpful. But, I'm sure there's going to be a part 2 to this at some point. But very exciting stuff. And if folks out there, any enterprising young people, are interested in doing this, we're hoping to do a part 2 with the people that actually put this on the ballot at some point. So listen for that episode coming up soon. We also wanted to take a little bit of a left turn for these final moments. A dear listener, a very strong supporter of ours and friend and confidant, Alex Hendrickson, passed over this weekend from a heart condition, and she has a 12-year-old daughter, that she was raising alone. And we here at Election University, support our Democratic family. So we're going to post in the show notes the GoFundMe page. If you have any dollars burning a hole in your pocket this holiday season and would like to donate to the college fund for her daughter, it would mean a lot to us, and it would mean a lot to Alex, I'm sure, to send her daughter to college. So we'll post that too. Make sure that you check out our new features on the website. And as always, if you have any questions or concerns and you want to reach us or have ideas for shows, contact us at podcast@ElectionU. Any parting thoughts, Rainey?
Just have a happy holiday season. I'm glad to be back.
Yes, me too. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Feels good. I was a little dusty around here. The equipment was, I know.
Dusted off. I think we nailed it.
It's like all those shows that have like houses by the sea, on the East Coast, and they have all their furniture covered in sheets. It's like, yeah, we're back.
We're back.
Dusting off the sofa. Thanks so much, listeners, and we will catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This week's episode has ended, but the campaign fund doesn't have to. Head on over to www.electionu.com, where you can access all of the links mentioned in today's episode, as well as the show notes. There you can also sign up for regular announcements or register for our campaign school. It's your very own online personal trainer for winning campaigns. www.electionu.com. Click, learn, win.